Malcolm X was Louis Farrakhan's mentor, his teacher in the Nation of Islam. They believed that the white man was evil, that the black and white races should live separately. When Malcolm X revealed publicly that Elijah Muhammad, the leader of the Nation of Islam, was guilty of impregnating several of his teenage secretaries in direct violation of his own preachings of no sex outside marriage, Farrakhan was outraged, and he wrote that Malcolm was, quote, worthy of death. On February 21st, 1965, as Malcolm spoke in New York City's Audubon Ballroom, members of the Nation of Islam opened fire, killing him in front of hundreds of his supporters. Malcolm's wife and children were there, including Atala Shabazz, Malcolm's eldest daughter. She was 6 at the time. As you'll see on 60 Minutes this Sunday, Minister Farrakhan met Atala Shabazz for the first time in front of television cameras. And Farrakhan acknowledged his role in Malcolm's assassination.
I wish that Malcolm X were alive today and not dead. Yes, it is true that black men pull the trigger. We cannot deny any responsibility in this. Where we are responsible, where our hands are a part of this, we beg God's mercy and forgiveness.
What did you expect to come out of this conversation? What did you hope would come?
I genuinely hope that perhaps a healing can come to Miss Shabazz and her family. As I may have been complicit in words that I spoke leading up to February 21st, I acknowledge that and regret that any word that I have said caused the loss of life of a human being.
On Sunday, you'll see how painful it was for Atala Shabazz to listen to Minister Farrakhan's memories of her father's life and death. Malcolm was only 39 years old when he was killed. This month, he would have been 75.
Welcome to the Gilchrist Experience. You know, Malcolm's birthday is the 19th, today is the 16th. So 3 days from now, of Malcolm's, I don't know what date it would be, what age he would be, but this piece, I think, was done in the 90s. So that was, what, 30 years after the death of Malcolm, at least? The young lady was well in her 30s, so I wish I had the date. I could get the date from the tape, but I didn't. Forgive me. But this is a subject matter that we all need to relive. You see, I'm reliving history because of all the tales that have been told over many stories. The story about Malcolm has been revisited by us over the years several times. This one, my biggest hero, person I saw grow and change and a big influence in all our lives, Malcolm and Martin. These were my heroes, and I'm an elder, so I bring to you my take on all this, the Gilchrist Experience. And today, of course, we have our elders with us, Brother Leroy and Brother Graham. My buddies, we're hanging out again today. All right, give us a little take on that 60-minute piece, Leroy.
Well, I wasn't in the Nation at the time of Malcolm's assassination. I was someone who contributed to the OAU. I was someone who would go to the first meetings that he had at the Audubon. Actually, his first meeting was at the Savoy Manor. And I got there too late. The meeting was over, the place was jam-packed. The only reason I never went to Muhammad Mosque on 116th Street to see Malcolm is because I was raised a Catholic and I felt that they wouldn't let me in. Okay. That was in my head. Right. So I never went when he the separation occurred, then I went to see him. So subsequently, I went to the Audubon several meetings, but I wasn't there that day that he was assassinated. When they say members of the Nation of Islam assassinated Malcolm, my mind goes to the fact that I went to the New York Times that Sunday night on 43rd Street to get the first edition that came out. I read the whole piece. And in that piece, it said that there were 2 individuals apprehended. And that night, the first edition. The next morning, I'm reading for more details. That second person was nowhere in that article. So I'm saying, well, how did the second person disappear from the city edition or the late edition? And I didn't save the first edition for some reason. It was only a year later that I saw another publication coming out of the village. The village. I think it was called The Owl or something like that. It's a little piece, and it was dedicated to the assassination of Malcolm. And in that little pamphlet magazine, they mentioned the second person who was caught on that day. The 2 individuals who were tried along with Thomas Hare were individuals that they picked up at their homes. And they denied their involvement in that assassination. So I'm always looking for that second person. And subsequently, I met a brother who worked at the 30th Precinct, which encompassed that area. And 30th Precinct is on Amsterdam Avenue where Dubois High School used to be, Dubois. Anyway, I said, when Malcolm was assassinated, were you working? He said, yeah. I said, was somebody brought into the precinct? He said, yeah. I said, well, what happened to him? He said, the big brass from downtown came in and took him out. All right. So for everybody who is, now, Mike Wallace and his research team would have to know the thoroughness of their research. If they're thorough, they want to give that impression. And I'm not defending anyone. I'm just laying out the facts that they would have picked up that there was a second person arrested that day and what happened to that individual. So I don't know. I don't know, but I do know that based on what I understood coming in, that these brothers were lieutenants in the FOI, and they denied their involvement. They were the same kind of trial that we talked about the last 2 weeks with the Wappinger Falls, how things go down in the court, but you never hear them if the media doesn't report them. Now, Minister Farrakhan, and this is me as an observer, not as a person representing the nation, and I can't do that because I'm not representing the nation, that the language of the individuals, when you look at the Muhammad Speaks in that period of time, Malcolm left and he began to speak against his leader and teacher, the same man that brought him to the point where it's Malcolm X. So I'm not going into that, but when you're in an organization like the Nation of Islam, that is a family that people on the outside don't know and understand. So all they know is from the outside. You know, he won't let his daughter go to the prom. All right, but they don't know the rules and regulations. So that's a discussion for some people who understand the Nation of Islam and what the minister said. But what the enemy of the Nation of Islam attempts to do is to put Minister Farrakhan's name on the assassination. This is what the enemies do. I'm telling you what I know.
But he says himself it was his Redwood.
What I'm saying is that they use that to say, hey, he ordered, he was involved, etc. What he's saying is that his rhetoric at that time in defense of his leader and teacher was that which could provide an atmosphere. But if he didn't say anything, the zeal of believers in an organization, individuals can act on their own. All right? Now, those who say don't know and those who don't say do know. You know the famous saying. So that's the best that I can say on that in terms of observing there. Dick Gregory says that Malcolm was shot from the ceiling of the Audubon Ballroom. He said he had the autopsy report and the pictures. I never saw them. I don't doubt Dick Gregory's ability to get this kind of information because he did show me the photos of Ron Brown's death in the bullet hole in Ron Brown's head. That was supposed to have been a plane crash.
You're talking about the Secretary, what was he? Secretary,
Secretary
of Commerce, right.
In Clinton's, and they were investigating at that time where monies was going, or money had been. So he conveniently was on a plane that crashed, that supposedly crashed into a mountain.
We're undertaking a huge task of talking about controversial happenings over the last 100 years, really 50 years to be more precise. But let's show the other assassination. Let's show. I'm going to show you what the media shows us. You know, we know what's happening today, and what comes out of the media, what's fake and false. You saw that with Tawana Brawley.
You said fake?
Fake.
You're listening to Trump.
You only get the real. What did I say? I said
you said fake media.
Fake media.
I think you've been listening to Trump.
Fake media. Well, you see a lot of this stuff we had with Tawana Brawley. You see with Abrams talking about, you know, that she did this to herself. Right. Where people heard Eminem believe this fantasy that a 15-year-old would rape herself, or what is? There was proof. We had proof here about the assault of Tawana Brawley. Yet she was demeaned and sued for defamation by Pagonis, and he received what, $431,000 settlement.
An arbitrary amount, according to
Clemson
the sister, Ms. Jackman.
Ms. Jackman, yeah.
Jack
to Judge Hickman.
All right, so we're just unfolding a lot of lies that were told. All right, let's go to the tape about the assassination, and we'll come right back to you. All right?
Black Muslims felt that Malcolm was a traitor because he spoke out about the moral decay he said he saw in the organization.
The byline of Aubrey Barnett in the current issue of a national magazine says that the black Muslims are a fraud. What is your comment on this?
Well, Aubrey Barnett is a very intelligent person, and he has a fine academic background, and I think that the story in itself was very analytical, and it was objective, and it was true.
He also says that the black Muslim movement is just another little money-grabbing scheme feeding on Negro frustrations. Do you agree with this, too?
Well, if it is, and it is, and that's what it has deteriorated to, you still can't blame the Negro, and you can't blame the movement. You have to blame the society that let such frustrations develop until this is the result of it. I don't think any organization in itself can be condemned. The society and its shortcoming is what has produced an atmosphere that brings these organizations into existence.
He says there are probably less than 7,000 members now in the Muslim.
Well, it has fallen apart. No, thank you. It has fallen apart. And but what it has done in falling apart, many of those extremely militant and dissatisfied black Americans are now free to participate into the full swing of the struggle that's going on in this country, and I think it will be inclined to step up the tempo.
U.S. government agencies had Malcolm under heavy surveillance, even when he went overseas, where he narrowly escaped death by poisoning.
To address the first Congress of the Council of African Organizations, which was having its first Congress in London, and they were interested in knowing the rate of progress or lack of progress that the black man in America is making in his struggle for human dignity. So I was there and couldn't be here. And at intervals during that time I was over there, I almost wasn't over there.
With all that Betty Shabazz was suffering, having witnessed her husband being killed, her 4 children were at her side at the time, she somehow gathered up the strength to do this interview, which we share with you now.
What was his attitude toward his family?
Well, contrary to popular belief, his attitude toward his family was a very warm one. And although my husband traveled a lot, we had a very close relationship in the sense that whenever he would go away, I could always expect a letter, if not every day, every other day. And I could always expect a phone call. And now I think the great emptiness is not so much that he's away right now, but that he's away and I'll never get another letter from him, or I won't hear from him again. And when my children began to, after he's gone for a period of time, they began to ask me different things about him. They draw pictures and write little notes for him, and they're piling up. And I guess when they really start asking about him, I don't really know exactly how to explain to him that he'll never return. And I think there's a great emptiness.
As you see, that's from my other hero, Gil Noble, Like It Is. This is a great piece. It's I forgot the name of it. It was a lost tape or something that you know, it hadn't been shown much. Now, this came from Betty Shabazz organization, and I forgot the name of it.
I was thinking about what Malcolm said when the guy asked him about the deterioration, as he said, of the nation. And he said that he can't blame the people but the societal structure. And I'm thinking about present day quote unquote evangelicals who talk about Jesus Christ. And they're running behind Donald Trump. And you can't run with God and run with the devil at the same time. It's impossible. It's juxtaposed positioning. But I disagree with Malcolm because regardless of the societal conditions, spiritual leaders are called to a higher level and should conduct themselves as such in order that the people might see the transformative grace in that leader and then grab hold of the faith. Whether it was the minister or whether it's the reverend today, you can't have such degradation going on and hold the title. You can hold the title, but if you're untrue to the title, there's a serious problem because you're damaging the faith of people, you're misleading people, just like a cop who goes out and does something heinous, like you had those 2 cops that raped the young lady in the van last year. They're not cops. They have a title, but they're not cops. They're thugs, they're rapists. So I believe that if you're called, you can't give an excuse when you are morally inept and going the way you're going. You can't blame society for that. That is upon the individual. We all make decisions, and those decisions and the heart of the individual brings out the true character of the individual. So I believe that Malcolm was wrong in saying that it was the society, because every man has to take account of himself. Every man needs to assess himself. And we have to ask ourselves, is this right what I'm doing, or is it wrong? And then make the necessary adjustments, regardless of the society.
You take this 80s when it was planned genocide with crack. Can you blame that on the societal or the government plan attack on black people, or you blame it on the drug dealers who made a bunch of money and killed half of the population or destroyed a whole generation or 2 generations with crack, making money and becoming blossom into a gangster rap and everything else? Who can you blame that on?
Brother Winston, Brother Graham, there's a social scientist that we have. I haven't been able to make contact with him in some years. His name is Terry Williams. And Terry has done a definitive study on the infusion of drugs into the black community, specifically crack. Terry Williams. He has a couple of books, but I haven't been able to speak to him. I mean, a clear assessment. When you deal with the drug dealer, you're dealing with, quote, a protected opportunist, based on our experience.
Right. The drug dealer.
The drug dealer.
Right.
And what happens, from my observation, I've not been in that trade, but what happens, they get to a certain point, and then the authorities remove them and let somebody else come up.
Right.
Right.
And usually, from my observation, these brothers are involved in material gain. If they get involved in buying real estate, they're swooped up even earlier.
Yeah.
If they're involved in getting real estate. But going back to what Malcolm said, what struck me with Malcolm, what he said about in response to stealing and whatnot, that's what we would frankly call it. And that is society as we exist in it is an incubator. And there is such a thing as social engineering, and there is such a thing as a Negro mind. There is such a thing as dedicated individuals. So let's say Malcolm is a dedicated individual, and then you have people who go along to get along. And they're opportunists, and if they have an opportunity to take some money, they take some money. Now, what happens is that if you're in an organization where you take some money and you're caught taking money, there are organizations that deal with you. Right. And they deal with you in a very precise way. You're not, you know, ain't no 911, you know, come get this person. But, so you take your chances. The subject of Malcolm that I would like to pursue is how Malcolm comes out of the trauma of black people being stolen out of Africa, brought over here, gone through a process to be made into Negroes, and that involves rape, that involves the lynchings, that involves burning at the stake, that involves the Red Summer when black people were being lynched all over this country, and then having his own father murdered, assassinated. His mother has a nervous breakdown, and as a result of that, here is a guy who's working the streets. He wasn't working in an insurance company, corporate America and whatnot. Those doors are closed. He's working the streets. And then he goes to jail as Malcolm Little.
Well, he tried something honest. He was a conductor on the railroad.
The Pullman Port.
That made him very close to the brother A. Philip Randolph.
Right.
They had a good working relationship.
So he tried to be honest, but he had a hustle. Everybody hustles. A legitimate hustle.
All right. So, given the circumstances, once again, the society frames or boxes you into certain areas. Now that box is somewhat open, but you have a force in America now to close any kind of opportunity.
Right.
So where I'm going is that when you deal with the emergence of a Malcolm X, because he comes into a teaching that frees his mind, and it wasn't that he got a teaching that made him Malcolm, he got a teaching that freed him to be Malcolm X. Cause and effect. So when you look at Malcolm X, you can't look at the time of his family in Indiana, whatever state it was. You have to go all the way back and see how we have been boxed in not to rise above the level of an obedient slave of the empire. The point is that Malcolm came out of that into his creativity, his courage. And that's going back to the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, which is a knowledge of self, the knowledge of who we are as a people. What happens when you get that knowledge, you get a little bit more backbone. The fear begins to leave when you find out who God is and who the devil is.
Right.
And the freeness also comes from being freed up from the Christian form of religion that the slave master gave us in order to control us. You see that in the movie Nat, the Nat Turner movie, where he was moved around from plantation to plantation, and the guy standing right over his shoulder and make sure he's teaching what was proper. But you also see in that thing where he slides into a liberation theology that the men and the women began to react to. So he couldn't do it in the open. He had to do it surreptitiously or in overcover but undercover. So you have Malcolm, and the story of Malcolm is the story of Rikers Island, Sing Sing, Fishkill, all of those prisons that house black men of tremendous capability. And that's how the genocide that you talk about is covert and overt. But the slickness of this genocide is that it gets us to believe that we're the cause of it. If Leroy didn't...
You don't give him the drug dealer is the real enemy.
I'm not denying that. I'm not denying. You know the movie...
I just want to get back to what we do to each other.
The Battle of Algiers.
Yeah.
You ever see the movie The Battle of Algiers?
No.
Okay. The Battle of Algiers, the brothers knew, the Liberation brothers knew that the drug dealers and the pimps were the enemies. They gave them a warning.
Right.
Because they know that the French have set up an incubator for that kind of thing. They said, hey, back out of that thing. They didn't, and the brothers...
Why were the drug dealers allowed to do what they did during the genocidal 80s?
Let me give you a true story. Matter of fact, the British did the same thing in the Opium Wars in China.
Of course. This is always the way they control. They get us to kill each other. What I want to bring all out is how we kill each other. We idolize, and look what we're doing today. Idolizing ex-drug dealers, and the gangster rap. This is it flourishes that teach what? Teaches the hate.
If you had Bob Law as a guest on your show, he would go into how the music industry took back the industry that had gone freestyle into rap, how they took it back and paid artists to do gangster rap.
That's what I'm talking about.
Plantation ethic.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Hip hop.
They let drug dealers do what they would do because they're killing our people.
They used KRS-One started out. He was homeless. He spent days in the library reading his history, and that's what he rapped about. So he's teaching kids through music. All right. The West Coast. All the guys in the industry, you got to go back and look at those early albums of gangster rap. Those weren't produced by P. Diddy or any black people. They were produced by white men, predominantly Jews on the West Coast, promoting the gangster rap and the dirt that is involved. So there was intent in their part. A good friend of mine collared a guy with 2 keys of coke years ago. The guy says to him, Detective Ricky, you're wasting your time. We work for the same people. Why are you risking your life? He said, yeah, right. He says, I'm leaving court with you today. 2 keys. This guy was a Russian guy in Brooklyn. And I'm going back 25, almost 30 years ago. Ricky walked out of court, and that guy walked out of court with him.
And bought him some coffee.
So the congresswoman in Los Angeles, Waters, held some hearings back in the late 80s. A former LA detective testified in the hearings and told her that the CIA was involved in the distribution of heroin and cocaine in LA. And he was there to testify of the fact. And he died about 1.5 years ago.
There you go.
Supposedly of a heart attack, and I'm not really sure about that. And I'm trying to remember his name. But he was the one that birthed a lot of the flame. I mean, Waters was already on fire, but when he testified of the fact that LAPD was involved with the CIA in the distribution.
I ran a tape on
that
years ago.
And if you read the book Compromise, Clinton, Bush, and the CIA by Reed,
right.
There was a short movie that came out last year, Don't Kill the Messenger. Kill the Messenger.
Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Kill the Messenger?
Kill the Messenger. But the book is Compromise, Clinton, Bush, and the CIA, and it shows you why Clinton and Bush were lockstep after they both left the White House, because they were lockstep before Clinton went to the White House. And the cocaine came into Mena, Arkansas. It was distributed through the governor's people in Mena, Arkansas. And that cocaine came to us as crack in all the major cities.
Right.
So we had 2,000 homicides in New York City in one given year. This was Bill Clinton. We had the Sandinistas, all that stuff in Latin America, because the government would not finance that revolution anymore. The weapons were made in Arkansas. They set up what looked like a chicken farm, but it was a munitions plant to make the weapons and to employ the poor white people in Arkansas. So when the digging is done, you know, you got to look. It's like the Wizard of Oz. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Yeah, you got to pull the curtain back. You got to pull the curtain back and see who and what is there. But our people fall into these traps. Capitalism, making money. We've always been industrious people.
Yes.
But we were never pariahs on each other in order to make a dollar. And that's where it has come to through the mind. As a man thinketh, so is he. So how do you think? If you're listening to some rap and stupidness all day,
there you go.
And you're running that through your mind, that is the indoctrination of a people. This is systematic brainwashing.
That's right.
It's not simply music.
And you have to realize we were raised on love energy.
Yeah.
Doo-wop. I mean, we come up in the day
that was about love.
We were the lovers. I mean, we were up being cool and laid back, and even jazz was laid back and be cool.
I've got
you have to be a gentleman who get, you know, you have to be a girl, you know, you swoon the ladies, not bark in their face and call them bees.
No,
I mean,
man.
come on. This is not our nature. This is not our nature to be rowdy and loud and call each other niggers. Come on, this is not our nature. And the same thing's happening with Donald Trump. He's not bringing out the true God nature of America. What is he doing? He's destroying everything good that we have as far as democracy is concerned. And this heathen is going to be brought down by Mueller. As true as God is real. And it's bringing out all the demons in America. They're coming out. Every way we turn, racism is emboldened.
I think,
but it's good that we see it.
Okay.
The truth is coming. It's been here.
But
you can't. It's
got to look
come to
inside
light.
ourselves and see the ugliness inside ourselves. When you start hating, you know, that destroys you.
No,
all right?
Nobody's talking about hating. I mean, on their side. I mean, here's a girl.
Well, the music is talking about doing what?
Well, once again, when we get a record company, those of us who have a higher awareness, a spiritual awareness, when we get a record company or back some rappers who are going to, as they call, spit out some positive lyrics and promote them, then what's happening today is still going to happen. The industry has made the rappers think, I mean, it's just, and people looking at this show.
But we're here to give them hope now that they can change.
People, the hope is in what we do, not what we say.
Okay.
We have to, that's why I said when we get up some money, because the ones who control the record industry, they didn't have no money. They had our talent. And then they had the knowledge to get us to sign away our publishing rights.
Is it all controlled by the Illuminati?
Well, I don't like to use
The
those
kids
terms.
will tell you that.
I like to use
The kids will tell you
Well, that doesn't mean they know what they're talking
Well,
about. They're listening to.
They know better than we do.
Let's say that. Let's say it's the Illuminati.
Of course, it's Illuminati.
Right. So what do we
Trump
do
is
then?
Illuminati.
Well, listen.
Calm down. What you
I mean, people refuse to believe. Every time I say Illuminati, I say, "Well, stay away from that."
I feel the study.
There's a real devil.
I feel the study of Malcolm and what the discipline that Malcolm had.
Amen.
All right, and what he stood for: family, courage, leadership,
amen,
work. He had a work ethic. He had discipline that a lot of people out here say they like Malcolm, they follow Malcolm, but they're the biggest pork eaters in the world. And that pork messes up the chemistry in your brain. People say, well, you don't know what you're talking about. It messes up the chemistry in your brain. So if you like Malcolm, begin to do those things that Malcolm utilized by putting laws onto himself. Laws onto himself. And whenever you do that, and the martial artists know this, whenever you put, the more laws you put on yourself, the stronger you become.
Amen.
The closer you become to your God that is in you, G-O-D, small God. And we all have that capacity. So when we look at Malcolm, let's look at cause and effect. What went into that? Yeah, there was a split between him and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. But Malcolm X was before El-Hajj Malik Shabazz. You can take whichever side you want, but look at where it came from. Look at the trajectory. Look at the source of the missile. And look who made the missile. God made the missile, and all of us have that capacity. A black man in America, when they teach us, well, they teach us military, but they teach us in a way we fight for them. But when we come up with our own discipline to defend our women, you see how many it's just astonishing what's going on in America now, but it's always been there. It was there during Obama time, but we didn't hear it. Obama was threatened more times than any other president, collection of presidents in America, but he didn't put that out, and that's still not out there. That would be a warning to the rest of us. Here's a guy, clean cut, whatever his politics are, quote, he didn't do anything against them. He did that which would make him acceptable, and they still hated him. Now that he's not in there, they're so-called undoing everything that he did, even the stuff that benefited them. and it's not really against Obama. It's about the history of a black man being in that White House, in my opinion. So when they say eliminating what Obama did, inferring that he was incompetent, etc., that is really a hit on black people.
Of course it is, and black people don't even realize it. But to take that a step further, about Malcolm and his ethics and morality and his being a gentleman and being thoughtful about us as a people and turning around, turning around his wicked ways. I mean, he repented and stayed straight and narrow. I spent 8-9 years with Reverend Kenyatta, his bodyguard, and that's where I really learned about Malcolm. And Reverend Kenyatta would say that he was the most moral man he had ever met. You know, and he had been around. We should go over Reverend Kenyatta a couple of times. Yeah. But I just want to run this piece on Malcolm going to Mecca. And here's like Leroy is saying, he was a redirected man. He really took his religion seriously and his teaching of Elijah Muhammad.
As Malcolm's attorney, are you acquainted with the names of those who might have been responsible for this deed?
I know that Malcolm made a statement to the police as to who he thought might attempt to kill him. As to knowing their names, I don't know their names, no.
Would you like to say a word or two, Mrs. Malcolm X, about the charges made by the press some time ago that he returned from Red China with a lot of money, trunkloads of money.
Oh, yes. They were wondering, you know, how he was supporting his family. And they were saying that every time he came into the country that he would, you know, bring bucket loads, literally speaking, bucket loads of money in, you know, from these, from Red China and countries like that. It was ridiculous.
Another area of life at one time when he was a member of the Muslim League, he seemed to have disrespect for the civil rights leaders, particularly Martin Luther King, and we noticed in recent months since he organized the Afro-American Unity Organization that he changed in his attitude toward Martin Luther King. Did he talk with you about that at all?
Yes, well, I think you'll find that his attitude changed tremendously after he left the Black Muslim movement and traveled abroad. He made 2 trips abroad. And the last one, he spent 5 months abroad, and it really broadened his scope, so to speak.
Well, they say travel broadens your scope, and as much traveling as I did during the past 5 weeks, I think I would be in bad shape if it didn't make my scope at least more broad than it was before I left. One of the things that I learned in the Muslim world, I didn't see any racism. I didn't see any conflict between the people over there because of the colors of their skin or the differences in color of skin. And in every country that I entered, there were Muslims who were black, brown, red, yellow, and white. And there was no racist attitude in any of them. Then when I was in Arabia during the pilgrimage, I had many different occasions when I would be involved with persons who would be considered white in America, who would be called white. They had blue eyes, blonde hair, and white skin. Yet they themselves didn't act like American whites act toward non-whites. There was a bond, a mutual understanding. There was an attitude of brotherhood practiced at all times. I analyzed it, or I should say at least I studied it, because here in America, our experience always was it was almost impossible to find whites who didn't act white, especially around non-whites. So the conclusion that I reached was that these people who had accepted the religion of Islam, who had accepted the existence of one God, automatically the chain reaction effect that this has, they would also have to accept the fact that everybody belongs to one family, one human family. So by accepting the oneness of God and the oneness of the human family, I believe the tendency to look upon each other according to the differences in color automatically was eliminated. Since they didn't regard themselves as white per se, as the American white man does, they didn't act white. They acted like humans. They acted like they were part of the human family and all others present were part of the human family. Now this was the first experience, or the first time that I had ever experienced this. And as I wrote to some friends, if the religion of Islam could eliminate racism from among the societies that exist in Africa, Asia, Europe, and Arabia, then it would do well for the American white man to expose himself to get to a better understanding of the religion of Islam, and perhaps it can remove some of the racism, which is like a cancer that is destroying the American society today. And the only thing that ever gave me the impression that there was any hope of eliminating racism from the hearts and the minds and the attitude and behavior of the American white man was the fact that I had seen proof positive in the Muslim world that the religion of Islam had removed it from them.
Can you imagine that thought in today's age about Muslim eliminating racism with Donald Trump in mind?
Charlottesville.
You know? This is, let me bring out this point.
Yeah.
Now, what Malcolm was talking about, the difference in the Muslim religion and the difference in white supremacy. And what we have in the White House today is the proof of white supremacy. And that's why most of the the whites that are going along, and blacks, believe in white supremacy, believing that the white man is superior to any other human on the planet. You know, like the Brits did in the old days, the sun never set on the British Empire. So the sun never sets on white supremacy. As Putin and Trump are teamed up together to destroy America. Everything Trump is doing is destroying America. Every one of his appointments is destroying America, democracy. He's making a buffoonery of American democracy. And these fools in Congress and every place else are doing what about it? They're the biggest hypocrites for power. McConnell? I mean, my God. I mean, I don't understand them. How they let this man get away with this nonsense. And you know he's dead wrong.
First of all, the U.S. Congress has been a no-show job for more than 10 years.
Always.
They've been doing nothing for the longest time. You have a number of Republicans who are not running this year in the midterm elections.
Trey Dowdy.
I recommend getting the list of those Republicans and see where they are a year from now and what corporation they're tied into as a result of the tax scam that was played on the people of this country, which is benefiting major corporations. Even crybaby Boehner now is going to be selling marijuana. Okay? So follow the money in all things. See who's going on the money train. We have been subject to being told that this person is running and that person is running and that's who you can pick from. And we're picking the scraps out of the garbage pail. There is no leadership in either of the major parties. These people are doing nothing but a shell game, and they're playing games. There is no agenda for the Democratic Party, none whatsoever.
Yes,
the Republican Party.
You can't say that.
Can I finish my statement? There is no agenda that the Democrats have. They're not coming forward and telling people, everybody knows what Trump is doing, and that's being taken care of. Where are you going to take the country forward from this point? The Republican Party has no agenda other than the sick mentality that they've put out. They've backed up, they've let Trump run it, and they're even talking about Pence now as he's scheming like a buzzard on the tree limb, ready to swoop down and move in. But I think that they will let Trump stay in to the end of the year after the midterms. If the Democrats can flip the House, the majority leader, the Speaker of the House, will be a Democrat.
That's right.
Trump comes out, Pence goes in, the Vice President would become a Democrat. It could be the first time you had a Republican president and a Democratic Vice President, which could bring a cessation of the political nonsense with the parties.
Where's the Democratic Vice President come from? The Speaker of the House?
If the Speaker, right, because Ryan is leaving. He's not coming back.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
So just watch how this is playing out over the next few months, because Mueller...
If we survive the next 6 months.
Well, he may not be going to Korea, so he can stay home. You know, the illusion that he had that he was going to get a Nobel Peace Prize and all that stuff.
Well, what about the righteousness of all this? What about, you know, I mean, where is
righteousness doesn't
God
come
in all this? I mean,
from demonic
this
people.
Man should be burning in hell. I mean, my God.
I have an honest question. What does regime change mean to you?
Kick out one and put in another.
That's what we need here.
All right.
We need it here.
These people on these radio stations here in these United States of America talk about regime change in Iran. They talk about regime change in Syria. They talk about regime change in North Korea. They're talking about it not just happening, but making it happen. This is how they have these discussions on WR radio. I mean, I listen to this stuff and I said, man, these people sure got some nerve. But they can do it because maybe we're not listening or their people are listening. But the point that Malcolm made about Islam and what it can do to eliminate racism, white supremacy, Islam has been made the devil in the last few years.
That's right.
Starting before 9/11.
Oh yeah.
It's a
93. Going back to 92, 93.
It's a skillful program involving what is called media, the film, television industry, and control of government rhetoric. So that is a reality. There's even Muslims who believe that Muslims were involved in the 9/11 thing.
Oh God, don't go back to
there
that.
are Muslims who believe that. There are Muslims from here and Muslims from over yonder who believe.
There's another farce. I mean, we've gone over this 9/11 business I don't know how many times. And any fool that believes that two planes can knock down a 110-story building, I'll sell you the Brooklyn Bridge. I mean, damn. I mean, how dumb can people be? I mean, come on.
But they play on the
That's
emotion.
Planned demolition. Building 7 came down at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, come on. And people are sitting back there blaming the Muslims for 9/11. 9/11 is a farce. Wake up, people.
So the point is that what Malcolm observed, the going against that grain.
What about the planned demolition I just talked about?
I mean, those of us who have looked at this thing and looked at it knew that something was. When we first saw it, you say, "Wow, that looks like that hotel they brought down in some part of the United States. Came down from
Pancake.
What
It's
they
called
call
Pancake.
It in its footprint." So it's not a matter of discussing
But that's a joke when they blame it on 2 planes. I mean, how anybody in his right mind could look at that and tell me that it came? No building in the history of the world as a building fell by fire.
The other point about
Within
what
2
Malcolm
hours
said.
time too.
The other thing about what Malcolm
and in
said
10 seconds.
is where he didn't see Muslims in discord or fighting and killing one another, which happened after they went into Iraq, and Afghanistan. They carefully went in and began to play on the divisions that were there.
Different
so
sects.
now you have Muslims blowing up mosques, because they are Sunni and they're Shia. And this is because an outside influence came in. This wasn't existing before they came into Iraq.
Now, didn't Hussein have everything on hold?
He maintained order.
He was nothing but a Hitler of the Islamic faith.
Well, the thing is, when you're dealing with going back to cause and effect. Let's take Nigeria.
Oh, God.
Nigeria is a combination of tribes and tribal areas that was constructed by the British, the Berlin Conference, so that the Europeans made it in such a way that when they left, the people would still be disunited. They couldn't come together, and that's what you have in these.
Let's talk about the Congo. Now, we've done. How many shows have we done on the Congo?
And the Europeans are behind that. This has been the ongoing problem.
White supremacy.
With this divide and conquer.
That's it.
Because even though they say, all right, we're not in it anymore, they're still manipulating it from a distance. It's almost like remote control.
But why can't we wake up to the fact that we're being manipulated and controlled and unite amongst each other?
The people on the ground don't have the knowledge and the understanding. For instance, in Iraq, when my son was overseas, he said, there are people over there, they want American noses. They don't want wide noses. They want American. There's a big move to have American noses. And this is part of the brainwash. Part of the brainwash.
But that doesn't make it right.
It doesn't make it right.
It doesn't make us look sensible at all. It doesn't look like.
We as a people don't study history. I was looking at a documentary on Persia in the early 50s and how BP, British Petroleum, had partnered with the Persian government, but the Persians found out they were being ripped off. They kicked, well, this is before it was BP, but they kicked them out, and they came here, sat down with the CIA, and they orchestrated a coup for a regime change from a democratic government to where they put in an Ayatollah who was the puppet for the U.S. and British Petroleum.
Was it the Ayatollah
They
or
did
the
that
other
throughout
guy?
They put the Ayatollah, the first Ayatollah came in 1953, but they destroyed a democratic system of government that was in
Well, it was a
Persia, and then
colonization.
renamed it Iran.
Then they brought in the Shah of
Then they
Iran.
brought in the Shah,
Yeah.
who was another puppet. All right, and the
Now, who's brought in
people
Donald
killed him.
Trump? The Russians.
They,
Putin's put Donald Trump in charge here. Now, what is Donald Trump doing for white supremacy? Let's talk about that one.
doing everything.
I'm looking
The
at
Klan is rising up. Racism is
coming
at
they're
its
coming-
best now.
They've been up, but now they're coming forward.
Waffle
And-
House is look at all the crap that's going on here. I mean, they used to be halfway civil.
I'm looking at the phenomena of white women calling the police on black men
And
and
women.
black women.
They're watching the rappers.
And it's happening over here, this part of the country, this part. I mean, I'm saying, well, what's going on? There's something going on in the Caucasian community. Some messages that they're receiving
From
that
Trump.
you and I don't know.
From Trump.
But whatever it is,
It's all right to hate.
there's
It's all
something,
right to hate.
something is happening there.
That's exactly what it is. He's promoting hate.
But I think that for black women who have aligned themselves with women other than themselves, thinking that women other than themselves are going to watch out for them, should pay attention to that.
But women are uniting.
I'm talking about black women.
Well, black and white, whatever you call it. If you're a woman and you listen to Donald Trump, you're going to unite.
I talked to Michael Graves yesterday, 100 black men.
Oh, God.
And Michael was story. He said, I don't call the National Association of Women. He said, I call it the National Association of White Women. He said they haven't come out and protest against all of these injustices that are happening to black women around the country. He said you never see them, but you see black women joining on to them. But you don't hear white women protesting what has happened to black women. Sandra Bland being a case.
Oh, God.
She dies in jail, and so forth and so on.
Whatever happened to that case?
Well,
Yeah.
so
There's another one.
these are I'm going. This is not. I don't like to take part in.
Wow.
Oh, woe is me.
You know, I don't have a clock in front of me, and it's
Okay.
over here. And we got 30 seconds left. Oh, wow.
Black people
Thank
are
you for
going.
coming.
Black people are winning, even though it may not look that way.
Hey, the
As
whole
long as you
point
have
is,
one conscious.
listen to me. God is real, and you just pay attention to the guiltless experience, and we'll be back soon. Power to the people. God bless. Did I say the God in me loves the God in you?
Say
Yes,
it
I
now.
did. All right. Amen. Hey, this is I enjoyed this one. God bless you. Power to the people.
Wow, 58.
Oh, we got
Wow.
another minute. I'm sorry.
Got another minute.
See, I
At
need a
58,
clock.
you still got another minute?
Yeah, you got
You can never
59.
give up. You can
Okay.
never give up.
No,
and
who's
God
giving
has
up?
given
Who
you
was
the.
that?
No, I'm just saying that.
Well-
I'm talking to the audience.
Yeah.
God has given you life, and you're here for a reason, and
That's
it's
right.
not just to be a consumer.
That's right.
That's,
You got to work. We got to work in our families vertically. Get our grandchildren together. Get our nieces and nephews. Start there.
just remember God is real. There's no doubt about it. I'm still here
Amen.
after 77 years, and it's only through God's blessing I walk around.
Hey.
That's all.
That's for real.
And that's real. Right, Bev? Power to the people.
There are no
Graham,
excuses.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Black man.
I always enjoy this.
Thank you.
There
black
are
man.
no excuses.
And happy birthday, Malcolm. We're still here and
Praise
love you,
be.
brother.
Yes, indeed.